Yeah.
And I knew from my perspective, this poor woman doesn't even know what's about to be exposed of her son. Like, I was sure that at the end of the trial, she was going to see her son for who he really was. And God, how painful that's going to be. She's going to lose him twice. She's going to lose him physically once, and then she's going to lose the idea of who he was.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to the Another Nobody podcast with me, Travis Myers. So glad to see you here again. And today is episode 2 of my interview with Michelle Horton, author of the Dear Sister True Crime book, all right, about her sister, Nikki Addimando. If you didn't listen to last week's show, please do yourself a favor, go back, check it out, so you're caught up with what's going on today. This story is a hell of a ride, and you don't want to miss any of it. Thanks for listening, and let's get on with the show. You're now 9 months into it, and bang, you got to find yourself a new counsel immediately and find a way to pay for it.
Right.
Can you describe that a little bit?
It was so stressful. We had been fundraising really from the beginning because we assumed she would need bail. You know, we kind of assumed bail was like a given. Again, another naive thing that
Yes.
I didn't realize was going to be such a fight to get her bail. So we had been raising money. It's not easy to raise money for someone who's been accused of murder.
Oh,
It's just not.
Of course not. Yeah.
But because of Nikki's character and because of people who knew the kids and knew me and knew Elizabeth and Sarah and all the people who were around us knew us to be who we are and what we were saying is true. People were so generous, and it was kind of like we built this very quiet network of people who were giving money, either knowing that it was a loan that we would give it back to them or giving money for legal fees. But when we had to hire attorneys, like, we've just been raising money for bail, and it was hard to like get that. Now, you know, it's like, okay, well, you need $60,000 in the next week. You know, it's just like, oh my God. So it's just so, I mean, it truly was a full-time job to fundraise. So then we had to hire these people. Again, like I said before, there's not a lot of people who are licensed in New York to have this level of expertise. And then there's the politics of, well, who's going to play best in front of this particular judge? And, you know, there's so many considerations besides just who's qualified. It's like, who is going to represent Nikki the best way in this particular county with this particular personality sitting on the bench. And we did our best to kind of make these choices, but we didn't have a lot of time. And we hired some guys who I'd like to say did their best, but it was really difficult. It was really difficult to watch.
Well, I know there's a bit in the book, and well, I won't try to quote you, but I know believe me, I understand it so much, because it was, you know, again, as a police detective, it was part of my life too, especially when dealing with the court system, you know, because for us, there's something that I say all the time, and I'm probably boring my listeners with it right now, you know, is when it comes to the police, you know, we are the lowest rung on the law enforcement ladder. I don't think we should even be called law enforcement because it's a misnomer, because we don't get to enforce shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't enforce anything. The courts enforce. We just kind of collect the evidence. We decide what we think is true, and we present it to the courts, and our job is over, right?
Right.
But what happens so often, okay, is you have personalities that are not only that personalities that are involved, but you realize that the justice system is not really about guilty or innocent. It's about who wins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I think happened here, if I may. And again, not to get towards the end of the story, but, you know, these people were not interested at all whether Nikki was guilty or innocent. They had an easy win, you know? And I think, to your counsel's credit, you know, I know you weren't so happy about him in the end, but he did try to make that point, you know, that, well, put your brakes on. This has nothing to do with whether she's guilty or not. It's about winning the case,
Yeah.
you know. And sadly, that's what the district attorney's office was after, was a win. And this was an easy win because they did, and correct me if I'm wrong, offer her, and tell me how many times, because I know I'm right. How many times did they offer her a plea?
Oh, Nikki would know better than me. It was more than once, and it was every time they offered, it got lower and lower and lower.
Right.
And then Nikki was very clear that she wasn't going to take anything that was more than single digits.
Right. She
But
refused.
even say that she's guilty when she's not, it's such an erase. It just erases her own experience. So it was so hard for her to even contemplate taking a plea. But they were really pushing pleas on her because nobody wanted to go to trial.
Because again, it's an easy win. And that's a big problem we have. It's a whole nother subject. We won't talk about it today. But the whole plea bargain system is really just an easy win, Because
they get
somebody that you know has been arrested for a heinous crime and is allowed to plead guilty to a lesser crime that he didn't even commit, just for the win, I mean, it's happened to many people like yourself. You get the stop sign or the red light or the speeding, and they'll tell you, plead guilty to the seatbelt. Even though you have your seatbelt on, it's a win.
Right.
And they can wash their hands of you, And I think a lot of what happened to your sister happened right there. I mean, Hannah Krause did, and again, everything I know is from what I read from your book and the things that I looked up online. It did seem that she had a spiteful thread running through her, and she desperately wanted this win. And the more times your sister refused a plea deal, the tougher she got. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, once it was, we're going to trial, which, she had to sign something from her lawyer saying she was going against their counsel. The people in the system were not happy that she was using her constitutional right for a trial of her peers, which is another conversation about how a jury of your peers is not really your peers when every single person who has experience with domestic violence is wiped from the jury pool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think even the decision to go to trial was also slightly naive in that we thought there would be justice in front of 12 jurors, not realizing that the jury selection process is so limiting as far as who is going to vote for the prosecutor side. They really psychologically analyze everybody, and they don't want they want black and white thinkers who only, they don't see the gray. They don't have any, experience. I mean, how do you have experience, not know anyone who has experiences with domestic violence? Like everybody does, right? So, yeah. We did not understand how limited the jury even is in knowing the truth, because they only see a slice that the judge allows. And if the judge is already committed to making sure she's guilty, she's screwed from the beginning.
Absolutely. And then you have the situation again. So now you've learned, more so now than at the time, that really, again, guilt or innocence has nothing to do with it. It's a chess game.
Yeah.
It's a chess game of, is the district attorney's office going to win, or, is your counsel going to win? And they're going to play it any way that they can, honestly or dishonestly. They're going to play it any way that they can to win. All right. And which is absolutely tragic. Then, as I've seen many, many times before, because I've been through the court system so many times before, if you, on the day of trial, so you end up showing up at trial, right? First day of trial. And what do? They asked you one last time to plea. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually wasn't there for trial because I was...
If you're not allowed in.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. But I know that they would have asked Nikki to plea one last time. Okay? And she refused. And by refusing, not only does it make, again, the district attorney's office angry, it makes the judge angry. Because now you're going to make him sit through this trial. Mm-hmm. So immediately he's not happy with you.
Yeah.
And if you want to pick it up from there, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened. I wasn't there for trial, which was actually a blessing when it came to writing the book, because that trial could be a book in itself. So much happened.
Yes.
But all of it is kind of filtered through Nikki or through what other people are telling me. So I put scenes in so people can understand what happened, but it's not like a huge court scene heavy book because I wasn't there. For me, what was important is that her trial was so covered. It was in the New Yorker. It was in, there was just like so many places that were just focused on her trial. And the consensus is exactly what you said, that this was about a win. And this is not only something that happens to Nikki, it happens to so many other victims who find themselves at defendants' tables, or anyone who finds themselves at a defendant's table. But I really wanted people to understand, to kind of pull back a little bit at the family around the trial. Like, it wasn't just Nikki who was being, it was one life lost for a win. It's the children. It's our mother. It's me and my life, and like the community around us, that these games that they play do not just take one person's life, which is a tragedy, but it's the ripple effects of that are so deep and vast. And I think it's something that, especially when it's like true crime stories, people aren't really subjected to. They don't really get to see the deep emotional impact that these court cases have when, the court is closed and we're in our bedrooms and we're trying to just like live our lives.
Something we didn't touch on because we got to the court part, but and you again talked about the family, not the family, but the family that grew around your sister in her case, is just how much support she had, how there were protesters outside.
Yeah.
How everybody was wearing their purple shirts, to show support, and had signs, and they're almost, did become like a Team Nikki sort of thing.
Which was intentional and organized, and it took a lot. Like, Elizabeth and I, from the beginning, kind of hit the ground running with that. We very quickly understood that what was currently happening to Nikki plays out all of the time, all over the country, and it has for decades, and it probably will for decades if we just allow this to continue. And so there are networks, there are organizations. There's one that we found called Survived and Punished, which is just so succinctly said that they survived and now they are punished.
Yeah.
And there's an entire like playbook for how you can support these victims who are now criminal defendants. And what they need is a defense committee, which is a group of people. In our case, it was me and Elizabeth and Sarah and people who kind of like congregated around wanting to help. And the job is to kind of like do all of like the lawyers are not going to want to deal with the media right away because they don't want it to be a public opinion trial. They have their work set out for them. And the advocacy is not in their lane, but there needs to be people who are giving context to the media, who are giving quotes, who are organizing events, who are raising money, who are supporting Nikki and the family, and also getting answers from the lawyers, and kind of being this middle entity to talk to all of the different entities that are at play here. And that is what we did. And it required us coming up with talking points, writing press releases, doing like word of mouth, not even like social media at that point, because we didn't want wind to catch in like the prosecutor and the judge to do something that was like gonna hurt Nikki or get a counter protests for people who, were from his gymnastics studio and said, oh, he could never have been this person. So we did some things very quietly and said, wear purple, that's the color of domestic violence. So we really created a small, very active community before we even got to the larger advocacy networks where we're on social media and we're creating like large movements. It really started with people who were willing to put their bodies outside of the courthouse in middle of Poughkeepsie and say, yes, she's charged with this, but you don't understand the full story. Just to be able to kind of change the narrative as much as we could, because all the media was printing was shocking. Woman kills man. What could have happened? You
I
know?
can tell you personally, my personal experience with the news and with the media. Now, back in my day, there was no social media. It was all newspapers and the actual news and radio, But in the well over a dozen times, either it was something I was involved in, had to do with me personally, or it was a case that I was involved with somehow. Never once did they get it right.
No.
Not,
Even
not one.
small details. Yeah.
No, I mean, not once did I ever read something that I knew firsthand about and say, yeah, they got it right. There was always 2, 3, 4, 5 things, sometimes a completely different story altogether, you know? And
it's really dangerous.
Oh, it's scary. And now we live in this information superhighway. I mean, again, you're a young woman. Back then there was, I don't want to say control, but there was a little more honor to the media, okay? Where now there are so many things and everybody wants to get it out first. Everybody wants to, it's kind of like, reported at 6, we'll correct it at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. And that's what
already done, because people take
already done, because whatever goes in your head, even if it's a stupid Facebook post by a stupid person, you know what you're going to say tomorrow? Oh, well, I heard this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's got nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. Now, back with your group, there was a little bit of two teams going, because as you mentioned, with the gymnastics group, there was for lack of a better word, a team Chris and a team Nikki, It did appear to me from everything that I've seen that, Nikki had a stronger team, but regardless, there was pushback.
And we still live in that community, and it's very difficult, especially for Nikki, to exist around people who were rooting for her to be away from her kids for the rest of her life.
Yes.
And I tried to afford as much compassion as I can to people, like especially his family. They lost someone who was very important to them.
That's something that I would like to bring up, that I think if there is anything commendable about this entire situation, because it is such a bad situation. When I read the part about your conversation with Chris's mother, Mrs. Grover, okay, and she told you, you have to understand, this is my son, and I'm on his side, and I understand that you're on your sister's side, and yet you continued, I'm going to get a little chalked up here, I'm sorry, but you continued to bring the children to visit her, every weekend or holidays or whenever it was, to protect your children, Nikki's children, from this situation. Regardless of which side of the fight you're on, there is a bit of beauty there, and I don't know if you guys are friendly at all, how you get along, if you still have a relationship, I don't know. But I thought that was very commendable, very strong, very good-willed from all parties involved. I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you want to describe that a little bit, because that was very touching.
Be very careful about what am I going to include. So, because I knew from going through this how painful it is to have someone else tell your experiences for you in ways that maybe aren't how you experienced it. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, with pulling out transcript quotes for people in positions of power just to not get it wrong, I had to be really careful about what I wrote about Chris and what I wrote about Chris's family.
Absolutely.
For a variety of reasons, but I always wanted to have the highest, the best will that I like, only include things that painted them as neutral or compassionately as I could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, relationships with people, I could have said all sorts of things that are based in theories and whatever, but that moment that I had with her, I felt like really spoke to the core of how we were able to continue to have a relationship with each other.
Yeah.
I was glad she said it as plainly as she did, so I could, because it's such a complicated relationship. But I think that moment, even though I didn't have it recorded, I was so sure it happened because of how it impacted me. And that's why I ended up putting it in the book, because I felt like it was a good representation of the truth of how we were both feeling,
And the fact of however the words fell in real life, in real time, you still made an effort again to bring her grandchildren to her on a regular basis.
Yeah, because I knew it was the last.
And she, if I don't know, but from what I understand, she did not badmouth Nikki to her children the entire time.
From what I understand, yes.
And that is again commendable and surprisingly beautiful to me, because I know there's no way in the world, and again, I can't imagine what you can imagine, if it was, your son who was the one who was killed, how in the world can you side with his killer?
Well,
Regardless.
yeah. And I think another aspect of that conversation was that we were both very secure in our perspectives. She had police detectives and multiple district attorney's offices telling her that she was right, that her son was taken from her, and that Nikki was going to go away for a very long time. She was positive that that was going to happen. So it was almost like, I know you're going to stand with your sister because I would stand with my sister, and kind of like do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, she's a killer and she's going to go away for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I knew from my perspective, this poor woman doesn't even know what's about to be exposed of her son. Like, I was sure that at the end of the trial, she was going to see her son for who he really was. And God, how painful that's going to be. She's going to lose him twice. She's going to lose him physically once, and then she's going to lose the idea of who he was. And what ended up happening is we both are very secure in our perspectives to this day. She still thinks her son was taken from her. She does not want any relationship with Nikki ever. And I am positive more than ever that her son did monstrous things to Nikki and would have been detrimental to the children if he would have continued to be in their lives. But we
know, and let's to hit that nail one more time if we could. All right. I know we just talked about it a little while ago, but before we get into the trial, because that's where we're at now, again, the things that Chris did, which are documented not only on Pornhub, and I don't know if any other sites, but that's the one I know that's mentioned, found by a private detective, recorded or screenshot or whatever the right word is for that, okay? And by her doctor visits, okay? And I don't, again, want to be awful, but can we, again, describe them, to so people know just how god awful they are. Yeah, yes, the injuries and the awful things that were put on. I know there was something about a burning with a spoon that we didn't talk. You said she was burned, but there were things that came out that were just horrific.
I mean, it's interesting. Interesting is the wrong word. The small snapshots of what I included in the book are what initially came out, because Nikki wasn't the one who had to say what happened to her. It was other people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so much corroborating evidence that, like, Nikki didn't even ever get the opportunity to tell the whole story of what he did to her, and like the depths of sex trafficking and the physical injuries that he did to her body, because she wasn't even able to process anything that had happened. Like, a lot of the stuff that like you mentioned, she was burned with a spoon on her genitals because she talked back to him.
Yes.
All of the injuries and the porn videos were punishments. That she stepped out of line, she didn't give him sex, she didn't speak to him the way that he thought that he should be spoken to. He was going to punish her with acts of violence.
And if I can, All right. And it sounds like I'm, being malicious, but I'm not. I'm just trying to prove the point. I want to get it right, but you're going to correct me. His Pornhub handle, his last name was Grover, and his Pornhub handle, if I'm right, was Grover's Revenge.
Respect. Grover,
Grover's Respect. I'm sorry.
it was all about teaching her to respect him.
Respect him. Correct.
Yeah, which is just like so shrouded in misogyny and just like, you must respect me. And
I think it's beyond, misogyny or male. It is a true, sickness. The man was sick. He was sick in the head, and a very sexually deviant individual.
definitely,
And
yeah, which was never,
for me, and to be honest now, okay, do a little devil's advocate thing here, your sister killed him. She has to be arrested. She has to be prosecuted. I get all of that, okay? But from where I'm sitting, okay, Chris got what he asked for, okay? That might be a bold statement, and people are going to write in about it, but that's how simple that is. If that had been my daughter, my sister, my mother, whatever, I very well may have been the one pulling that trigger,
yeah.
And
People,
and again, I will also give the little grain of salt, if everything, because as a detective, you gotta find the truth. But if half of what I read is true, which I'm sure it is, he Mr. Grover had some problems.
yeah. And legally, we should have the right to self-defense. We should be able to defend ourselves, but in the way our laws are written, whether it's stand your ground laws in stand your ground states or self-defense laws, the Castle Doctrine here in New York, it doesn't work for women. It doesn't ever work. It doesn't work for women. These self-defense laws are designed for like two men who are fighting outside a bar who are similar in size, and there's not a power dynamic, and there's not, the deep psychological effects of being loving a partner who is also torturing you. I mean, it's so complex that our laws are not set up to really support that, or to give even juries an ability to say, yeah, there's some gray here. I mean, it's like you killed someone, you got to go to jail. Like, when really, if we have self-defense in our country, these things have to be taken into consideration, and they just time and time again are not.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I absolutely agree with you. And it's so awful. So now here we are at trial, all right? And much of the stuff we just talked about, what happened to it at trial?
So much is suppressed. So much is not allowed in because Chris isn't here to authenticate it.
Correct.
So the jury cannot see that the images and the videos were uploaded to a website that had his last name and the word respect.
Yes.
They can't see that all of the bio information on his profile fit him to a T, down to his interests in cinematography and martial arts.
Again, for me, if I was on the jury, that's what have won me over.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I know.
Immediately. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so they can't see any of that. All they can see is that somebody, and the prosecutor would say over and over again, we can't know who.
Yeah.
Who could have uploaded it?
Mm-hmm.
Nikki's attorneys and Nikki and the judge and the prosecutor all know that they were not only uploaded to a website that the user had his last name on it and fit his description, but it's tied to his email address.
Correct.
So it's like there's all of this information that can corroborate where this came from, but they were able to say, because it was suppressed, because he is no longer alive to verify it, we don't know. Yeah. We just can't possibly know. So that's all the information that the jury got, but they could see pictures, not the videos. They could see pictures of Nikki in all of these compromised positions.
Strictly still photographs, though.
Just photographs of her nude body, being tied up, doing all of these things. No other person's in the picture because he's behind the camera. And so they say, well, here are these images. We don't know who uploaded them. Maybe she liked it. Maybe it was her idea. Maybe this is her thing. Maybe someone else did it. All of these maybes, which is kind of a defense tactic to be like throwing all these theories because they don't have the burden of proof. But the prosecutor does have the burden of proof, but for some reason it worked in this case where she could say, well, maybe it was this and maybe it was that and maybe it was this, all to discredit Nikki.
Well, and all it is, again, is to throw that, to cast that shadow on the jury. Yeah. That, Nikki had a dark side herself.
Right.
That's all I want to say. And if I just say that, if I make you think it for a second,
yeah,
it's stuck in there. Back to the Facebook thing we were saying. I only have to say it once. And you're saying, oh, well, I heard,
Yeah.
And this girl, yeah, she might have had a dark side, and there it is. Listen, we're going to take another break right now, just for a second, okay? And we'll be right back to tell the rest of your story. You are. Hey, how you doing? It's me again, another nobody, Travis Myers. And today we're going to talk whiskey. I know most of you think of me as an all-American patriotic type guy, and you are right. But when it comes to whiskey and drinking whiskey, which I do, I always go for the Irish stuff. And my choice when it comes to the Irish stuff is Powers Irish Whiskey. Established back in 1791. It's a triple distilled, oak-aged whiskey. Powers is simply magic. It also happens to be the #1 selling whiskey in Ireland, which has got to say something, because if it's good enough for the Irish, it's good enough for you. So the next time you raise a glass, fill it with Powers, and think of me, another nobody, Travis Myers. Okay, hey everybody, we're back. And so Michelle, we kind of painted a picture there, just how the trial was not going the way you had planned it. All right, we kind of left off with a lot of the evidence not being allowed in, something that I'm very, very familiar with, again, on my end, where, sometimes you would lock up a really bad guy, a killer, drug dealer, weapons charge, whatever it is, and he may have been arrested a dozen times before. The courts will never let that in because it can sway the jury.
Mm-hmm.
And here they're doing the same, or Hannah Krause was doing the same thing. Again, she wants that win. So her job, for better or for worse, in this case, I believe for worse, was to not allow any of this evidence in. And that, of course, not only dismayed you and your counsel, but really put a hurting on this case. Please go ahead and describe.
Yeah. I mean, it was just not so much evidence was suppressed, like her forensic nurse exams that showed horrific injuries, anal prolapses, burns all over her body, just frank red blood pouring out of her, injuries that are so hard to read in black and white.
And also, not to cut you off, but so the listeners understand, okay, this was not a one-time trip to the doctor.
No, it was multiple.
Multiple times. Multiple reports have been made.
Yeah.
And multiple complaints by people who had nothing to do with your family.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And every single time she named Chris.
Yes.
But because those documents were not in where she wrote his name, they over and over said, and she never even said that it was him. Like, because the evidence wasn't in, they were able to just say these things with a straight face and act like they didn't know the truth. And so not only is the jury hearing this, but the media is hearing it and they're printing it. So it's so maddening. I had this like epiphany that, oh my God, I mean, I know these people who are testifying, they get up there and they put their hand on a Bible and they swear to tell the whole truth. But I didn't watch the prosecutor do that.
Yeah.
And she is not held to that same standard.
Mm-hmm.
She is able to say whatever she wants and it just becomes truth because it came out of her mouth. It was really, really disheartening and it made me question every court case I ever knew about, every news article I read. I'm like, we don't know anything. We don't know.
Everyone is a game. Everyone is a game. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, the court case, it lasts for like, gosh, I want to say like 3 weeks. It was weeks of trial. My sister actually testified which her attorneys did not want her to do because they didn't think she was going to do a good job. But she did a miraculous job on the stand. Everyone who witnessed her said she was strong and she was credible, and her story never changed. But at the end of it all, it was over. Closing arguments happened, and you just wait. And they took 3 days to deliberate, I believe. It was a Friday. We kind of had a sense that they're not going to want to take this into the weekend. It was just a grueling trial for anyone who had to sit through it, because there was so much when, people would get on the stand, so much wasn't even coming out because the prosecutor was so combative, and every single expert who came to testify for Nikki, they tried to discredit them. It was kind of just like a character assassination over and over, which was just distracting from like the truth of what they had to say. So to the point where like the jury was exhausted. Everyone in the audience was exhausted. The judge looked exhausted. It was just like almost like running the clock of just confusion, lies, and just like beating a dead horse over and over and over again. So people's eyes were glazed over. That seemed to be the general tactic of the prosecutor. And then the jury came back with a verdict, which I was there for. And that was a scene that was important for me to include because it really shows the emotions in all of us who loved Nikki, who were sitting in that courtroom hoping that she was able to pick up her kids today and go home to them. And we got the guilty verdict, which was the worst moment of my entire life. Because then it was back to the jail, waiting for prison. And there's so much more. Like I know we've already talked for so long, but there was a new law that was passed in New York called the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act, which basically just gives judges the discretion to take abuse into account. If there's a victim of abuse who committed a crime because of that abuse, whether they were protecting themselves or they, committed a crime under duress because there was a gun pointed at them, like these things that previously didn't have to be considered. This new law in New York was passed, which is actually one of the few like it in the whole country, that there could be another hearing, which is like another trial, another re-traumatization where the victim has to say, this happened to me, I was abused, believe me. And if the judge does, they can give them less time, because she was facing at a minimum 15 years to life.
Well, was it 15? Okay, good. I thought it was 19 to life, but
he ended up sentencing her to 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he decided she didn't apply for the domestic violence law. He said she wasn't a victim.
Now, did he have? This is a question that I had for you, and if you even know, he gave her 19 years. Okay, when it could have been 15 to life. All right.
Well, he gave her life.
I'm sorry?
He gave her 19 to life.
He gave her 19 to life.
There. Yeah.
So do you know what his guidelines were? What his minimum and maximum was?
Minimum was 15 to life. Maximum was 25 to life.
Okay. He dropped it kind of in the middle a little bit. All right. Which is, again, a little surprising to me. So the trial is basically over at the moment. Mm-hmm. But as you know, your work is not. You still got a lot of stuff ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
Because, you're going to try for an appeal. This new law just came out. And go ahead and fill us in on what happened after the trial.
Yeah. So she was convicted in April. By early May, this was a law. Nikki was one of the first in the whole state to even be considered for it. So that really upped our advocacy, because then we could, as a committee, go to all of the lawmakers who worked for 10 years to get this bill passed into law, all of the advocacy groups, all of the organizations who really put their blood, sweat, and tears into pounding the pavement and getting this law passed, and say, hey, there's a case now. You need to pay attention to this, because if she does not qualify for this law, who else is going to qualify? It's going to make the entire law moot. All of your work will be for nothing. We need your support now, which is really when we started to see a tide turn where people were able to be, or were willing to be vocal. Because again, when you have the state going against somebody, and like you're an organization that gets state funding, or you're someone who relies on the system in any way,
Yep.
Your hands are kind of tied. But because there is a larger advocacy at play where it's not just Nikki's life, it's future victims and also other incarcerated women who could retroactively apply for this law.
Mm-hmm.
If Nikki, with all of the evidence she has, doesn't apply, then what does it mean for the law? So we kind of use that to get media attention, to get more articles written, to get people to sign on in support for her, to get organizations to educate the judge. It was like we were in go time around this DVSJA hearing, which happened in September. And so it happened in September. We're waiting. We don't hear anything until February of 2020. And that is when he says she doesn't apply for the law. And like, it was just the
same judge.
Same judge. So the same trial judge then decides on this law.
Mm-hmm.
He says she does not apply, that the domestic violence is unfounded, basically completely erasing everything that she went through, everything this guy knew, because he suppressed all the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
He knew it all. And that really set people aflame under people, because it became, the injustice was so outrageous that we then amassed even more. And also because now that the court case is over, our restraints are a little loosened up, because we were always playing nice not to anger the judge. But now that the judge did what he did and said what he did, I put the whole sentence, basically the whole sentencing transcript of what he said, I put in the book, because I think it speaks volumes about
it does.
His ignorance, his mindset, his, like, all of it. It's just, he said so much on the record. And then all we really did after that was publish it and let people know. And we got more and more support, because, again, it wasn't about Nikki. I mean, it's tragic that this young mom is separated from her kids. For us who love Nikki and know Nikki, that was our driving force. But there was also the fact that, other court cases are decided by case law. So what happens to Nikki's case then affects what other judges will decide for other victims. So just the weight of that was very heavy. So we just kind of like got more and more momentum, and we became more organized. Our social media got, really granular with what we were sharing. And we always did it with a larger strategy in mind. We wanted to humanize Nikki always. We want to humanize victims who go through the criminal justice system always, and also hold people accountable. So that's kind of was our mission. Our communication had to be very clear. Our committee worked really, really well together to further the kind of momentum we were getting. And I think all of that played into us being able to find these appellate attorneys who were brilliant and well-resourced and did it all for free, and getting like enough public awareness for Nikki that the appellate court, I don't know, I'm thinking that it did play a part in the appellate court really taking this seriously, because the statistics we were given is that basically everyone appeals their case and less than 1% is even seen.
Yeah.
And like even less are overturned. The system does not like to go against the system. Once they have you, they have you. It's kind of a miracle if the appellate court overturns anything. Like inefficient counsel is basically impossible. I was told that the lawyer has to be both asleep and drunk for it to work. I was told horror stories of lawyers actually being asleep during trial, and they still didn't win on insufficient counsel. So it had to be like, but in Nikki's case, she had real constitutional right violations, which is all the appellate court looks at.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look at anything that's not on the record. So luckily, Nikki's trial attorneys did put a lot on the record, thankfully. So there was a lot for them to look at.
Now, let me ask you now, at this stage of the game, okay, you've gotten your appeal, right? You're going to go back to the appellate court. Do you feel, or do you know, that it was all because of the judge, or was it a combination of the judge and the district attorney and, of course, your own attorney's efforts? Or was it? I see. It was all of it. Okay.
All of it played into it. But ultimately, the judge at the end of the day is the one who had the power to sentence her under this law. He had the power to let her in. Like the judge had the most amount of power.
Sure, absolutely. He always does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So and also, like I said, this is February 2020 when she was sentenced. Right after this is the pandemic.
Yes.
So, that just complicated everything as far as how
everything for everybody. Yep.
Yeah. Everything was done virtually. Everything was like at a standstill. Nikki is now in a prison in a pandemic, which is like the worst place to be in a pandemic. So yeah, it was really tough. And every evidence that I had was that the system was going to just, like, the worst case was going to keep happening. Mm-hmm. So I didn't hold a lot of hope for the appeal. My sister did hold a lot of hope, thankfully for her. I was just accepting that this could really be the end. And she was never willing to accept that. Like, she was never willing to stop fighting to be back with her kids. And then, like, a miracle happened. It was a year after the appeal was filed, where we're kind of just building campaigns and, working with a PR agency who was helping us for free. And, like, we were just really pulling on every connection we had to try and right this wrong. And we had so many passionate people on our side that, like, a miracle occurred, and the appellate court decided she was a victim of abuse. There was tremendous evidence to support it, that the trial judge, I should just say his name, Judge Edward McLaughlin, who is up for re-election in 2025. So we are ready to get this guy off the bench. That his views of domestic violence were arcane, and he had a fundamental misunderstanding of domestic violence. They really kind of went for him in the appellate ruling, which I hear is pretty rare. And what is also rare is that instead of sending it back to that trial judge to resentence her, they resentenced her themselves under the DVSJA law. So the lowest they could have done was 5 years. They gave her 7.5. I don't know why. I don't know why they came up with that number, but they gave her 7.5 years. So at the time of the appellate ruling, she still had 3 more years to serve.
So she had already served 4 and she had 3 more to go.
Yep.
Right. And she is now a free woman, I understand.
A year ago, a couple days ago, I think it was January 4th, right, 2024.
So can you tell us just a little bit? And we've talked about so many personal things about your sister already, but somehow I still feel like I'm prying. How is she? Obviously she's happy to be free. Is she adjusting well?
I mean, I think she's adjusting as well as anybody in her circumstance could. She has a therapist she trusts and likes. She has a psychiatrist who she trusts, which is like half the battle right there, is to have that support system. But what she went through with Chris, she is only now beginning to process. Like, her walking out of jail 7 years later, after everything that happened, she's still processing what she went through with him, that she just had to, like, suppress and shut down, because you can't do that in prison. You can't feel, you can't be vulnerable, you can't talk to people. You have to, it's like a totally different survival strategy. And what my sister does best is survive. In any circumstance she's in, is survive. Now she's home. She's tasked with learning how to live, which is very different. So the healing that she has to do, she would be candid to say that she's just reliving. Like, it's not even like she's processing yet. She's still in a place where the years blend together, and it's like she gets hijacked by memories and smells and, her hypervigilance and all of these complex post-traumatic stress disorder that she fits to a T, because it's not just what happened to her at home with someone she loved and trusted, and that she grieved. She continues to grieve. She didn't want to kill him. She wanted him to stop hurting her. That's it. She didn't want to take her kid's father from them.
There's a thing about guilt, okay, which can manifest itself in so many, many different ways, okay? So I can all but guarantee, I don't know your sister, I've never met her, she feels guilty for killing Chris, okay? She feels guilty because of committing that crime, that she has done this to you, to her children, that she missed her mother's passing, that she missed 7 Christmases, 7 birthdays. I mean, her daughter was 2, and now she's 9 or 10,
She's about to turn 10, yeah.
and people can't help it, okay? They can't help it, but they turn that onto themselves. She and somehow in her brain, feels guilty for all the things that Chris did to her. She somehow in her brain, somewhere deep, deep in there, probably feels guilty for what happened to her when she was a little 5-year-old little baby girl, because that's what we do. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism or what it is that we do, but we internalize it. And then again, she feels guilty for it. So it's going to be a long battle for her to try. And, what is normal? I don't think any of us have normal lives, so to speak, but it's going to be a tough road for her. And she has got to be one of the luckiest women in the world, though, to have a sister like you that broke her back to do everything that you could do for her, and that support system that you created around her. Again, with the not the social worker, I'm sorry, the therapist, and the music teacher, who I know did a lot. We mentioned her, but we barely talked about her at all, who did so much for you. Again, from what I read in the book, these are tremendous people that didn't have to do a thing.
Exactly. I mean, I was always going to step in. This is my sister. This is, this is my niece and nephew. This is my family. I was always so amazed at all of these people who, just out of the goodness of their heart, because they knew it was the right thing, because they couldn't sleep at night if they didn't, supported us. I mean, Nikki wouldn't be home right now if it was just me who had been fighting for her all the time. It was the community around us that really showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me touch one more time on that guilt thing, just because I didn't put the punchline on there. It's something that you can tell your sister. For me, another nobody, Travis Myers, right? Who the hell am I anyway? But she shouldn't be guilty of anything. She's not. What happened to her as a child, as a teen, as an adult, in prison, wherever else, the bad guys are always to blame. That's it. And she's got nothing ever to feel guilty about or sorry for at all.
Yeah.
Such
a hard, like her license expired, like as a small example, her license expired when she was in prison. Mm-hmm. So when she came home, she had to retake her driver's license. So just taking a road test that's state run, the psychological weight of for years it being the state of New York against your name, the weight of that like the bad guys sometimes look like good guys, right? And like the people who have caused harm to her are out in our community being celebrated. So it's just it's so complicated. And there's so much nuance, and, just to navigate living in this small town after everything that she went through in this town is so hard, so hard. And I admire her so much for, not taking any shortcuts and not soothing herself in ways that are destructive. Like, she does everything she's supposed to do. She goes to therapy. She is, opening up to me and being honest with me in a way that she wasn't able to before. And like, I'm just so proud of her, because it takes so much strength and courage just to live.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Does she have any plans for the future that you can share?
I mean, right now, I think just she wants to be able to eventually, I'm sure she wants to be able to give back and to help people who are in her situation. I'm sure of it. Like that is her larger goal. She wants to do advocacy. She does through We Stand with Nikki. Like, she has been able to be posting some things from her own perspective and start to share. But, her nervous system is just, she needs a lot of rest, and she needs to take care of herself before she can give, which I think I'm the one, and people around her are like probably putting that, checking her a little bit more than she would maybe on her own. Like, I just want her to take care of herself before she then, like,
Or-
you know, takes care of other people. But, we rescued a puppy, and that puppy has been the best thing in the world for all of us, but especially for
I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah. So I think just like she just wants to enjoy her kid, like her oldest is in middle school, right? Like
Yeah.
so much of the magic of childhood is already gone, which we really see when it came to like Halloween and Christmas. Like it's so good for her to be back, and there's so much she won't have to miss now, but there's still so much grief for all that was lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
One last thing I like you to share with her, if you don't mind, on my end, is whatever she does, again, to be strong, but don't let the events of the last 8 years define her life. Okay? People have a bad habit doing that too. Where from now on she's only going to be, the Nikki Addimando that we've seen on YouTube or we talk about here on this podcast or whatever else.
Yeah.
But she can do and be anything she wants. She's still a young woman. She still has young children. She's got a magic life in front of her. Don't allow this horrible incident to mar the rest of her life, because it's far from over for her. It really is.
Yeah. We've been celebrating her release date, like it just happened, as her rebirth day. As like, you're 1 year old now. Like it's her new life. And it's she has so much ahead of her.
I believe she does. I really do. So, and how about you?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, what I love doing right now is talking to people like and educating people. I've been taking the book to colleges. I've been going to, domestic violence organizations and awareness events and talking to people and educating people on this issue of criminalized survival, family separation, how the court system replicates the cycle of abuse. I feel like it's something I'm really equipped to do. And I love like zooming into book clubs and using this book as a platform to continue to speak out.
Yeah. Now, and you did come from a journalistic background. Is that what you for?
Yeah, I went to school for journalism. I used to write about other people, so it was a little weird then to be on the other end. But I think it gave me a lot of perspective, and
it served you well because again, Dear Sister is a very, very well written book.
Thank you.
And for a grizzled old fat man like me, to be touched by it, you did a good job with it. You really did.
I didn't want to create something that was just going to rehash what people already knew. I wanted to add a perspective and a depth that could affect people on an emotional level, not just psychological.
Well, not only did it do it, but the way, again, there is, I guess I'm a writer myself, right? But the way you did it is, it's completely true crime. It's true. It's fact, but you gave it enough of a novelish feel that it's a page turner.
Yeah.
You want to know what's going to happen next,
I appreciate that. It was intentional because it's a heavy subject that I felt like if people put it down, maybe they wouldn't pick it back up again. So I wanted them to have that I wanted it to have a rhythm that people, and short chapters. So people
and they were nice short chapters, but they hit the point. I never felt like there was any filler in it. You know what I'm saying? Because that happens, and sometimes you feel it, but no, I wanted, sometimes, again, like I said, I had physically read half the book before I started listening, but I would be so annoyed because something would interrupt the book.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't sit for 12 hours and read it, or 11, 10 hours, whatever it would have took me to read the book, and every time I had to put the book down, I was like, I got to put it down, because it was a very, very good read. So, you have another one in you, think?
What did you say?
Do you have another one in you?
I don't know. I mean, if I did, it would be very different. Yeah. It took a lot out of me to kind of have to relive a very traumatic.
Oh, I imagine so, yeah.
It was really not fun to write. I'm very glad I did, but it was not a fun process at all.
No, I'm sure.
But I was going to say that in the paperback version, which will be out when this airs, I added another chapter to show our reunion, because when the book went to print, she was still in prison.
Right.
She was released a couple weeks before my book came out, which was early. She was released 6 months early.
Yeah.
So I added that reunion, which is it was such a beautiful experience. It could have been so many things, but it was a beautiful experience of our reunion. And then I wrote an epilogue, and then Nikki wrote a letter in it too, to kind of show her perspective. Because for so long I'm writing for her because she's in prison. And she read everything and, signed off on absolutely every word in the book. But now that she's home and I was going to add this new material, it was important that I got her voice in there. So she also records her letter in the audio. So if you have the audiobook, it should automatically upload and you'll have the new content.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm going to have to take a look then.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Michelle Horton, author of Dear Sister, do yourselves a favor and go buy this, all right? It's a great, great book. I'm so happy you came to sit with me today. It really, really was a pleasure. I hope it was for you.
It was. Thank you.
And no, you're really, thank you so much. And again, I'm sorry you had to write this. Please, please, give your best to my sister.
I will.
I'm sorry. Give my best to your sister.
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. What a heartbreaking story all the way around. There are no winners in the story at all. I'd like to thank Michelle Horton for coming by and talking to us. Please, please do pick up her book, all right? Dear Sister. It's a dynamite read. Like I said, I read it 1.5 times, and I was very happy I did. And more importantly, anybody out there who is suffering through any sort of domestic abuse whatsoever, please, please look for some help. It's out there, I promise you. Go to the authorities, talk, speak, let everybody know what's going on. Don't take it, all right? You don't have to. You do not have to. What more can I say? Until next time, thank you very much for tuning in to the Another Nobody podcast with me, your host, Travis Myers. All the best, my friends. Listen up. This one's important. I'd like to try to encourage you, please, to give to the Stephen Siller Foundation, Tunnel to Towers, at T2T.org. That's letter T, number 2, letter T.org. Do good for those who've done good for you.